Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's video. Going to have a look at the weather next week to 10 days for today's video. It will take us to around the 21st of February. So heading into the second half of the month with week to 10 day video updates. High pressure going to be in control of the weather this week, and it's going to be bringing a lot of dry and very mild weather with it. Actually, you could say quite warm by the end of the week. We might see temperatures up into mid-teens Celsius, so that's sort of 14, 15 degrees, which is more like sort of temperatures you expect in April rather than February. So it will be quite a warm end to weeks. Still some chilly nights, though. Skies are clear. The nights could be quite cold at the end of the week. Then as we go into next week, maybe turn a little bit more unsettled. That's what we'll talk about in today's video update. So I'm going to get on with that for you right now. I'm going to start with having a look at the century and temperature, because for the first time this month, the CET has now gone above average. This is provisional up to yesterday, 10th of February. We're sitting at 4.4 degrees now, an anomaly of 0.1 degree above average. So that's 61 to 1990, of course. If we were looking at 81 to 2010, it would still be a little bit colder than average. But these temperatures will be continuing to recover from what was a very cold start to February. The first day of February, I think, was the coldest February the 1st. It's around 2009. So temperatures will continue to recover over the course of the coming week. I expect that to be a degree or so above average by the time we get through to the end of the week. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8,000 feet is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure and low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates to high pressure and blue to low pressure. These are the mean flowcharts for 7 to 10 days time, and this will take us to around the 21st of February. So the ECMWF looks quite unsettled in the 7 to 10 day time frame. It has an area of below average heights over and to the west of the country. There's an area of above average heights across eastern and central parts of Europe. Jet streams going across the Atlantic like that and then into the UK. So it looks rather more unsettled, I have to say, for next week. It'll be a lot of dry and settled weather this week. Next week could see a change back to something a little bit more unsettled. Notice there is a weak area, or it is an area of above average heights up towards Greenland. At this point, it's not in a position to bring anything particularly cold to us, but obviously we do have to wait and see just how strong that area of above average heights was to get. But as it stands, next week looks like going to be a return of the westerlies, really. This is how the GFS is looking. So again, we do see some above average heights up there towards Greenland. There's also above average heights over to eastern parts of Europe. And we've got this area of below average heights out to west of us. Not impacted us as much with the GFS as the ECM. There's a big trough into much of America, so turning really cold again across many parts of America. And then the jet stream coming across the Atlantic and then diving southwards rather like that before it moves northwards again into Europe. So that low pressure is more centred out to our west-southwest. Not quite as unsettled with the GFS, but what it is doing is bringing up relatively mild air from a southerly to southwesterly direction, and still looking a little bit more unsettled, I think, next week. GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for Darwin today. That's up in Lancashire. Another suggested place on our list of suggested locations for this section of the video. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Darwin. We can see we're going to be pretty much mild on average from beginning to end. We're starting off a little bit chilly today, but temperatures will be lifting up through the week. By the end of the week, it's going to be very mild, as I say. Temperatures could be to the mid-teens Celsius. And then we go through into next weekend, into weekend event next week. We see the temperatures are cooling down. They're lowering. They're going back towards the 30-year temperature average. There are a few ensemble members that are going quite cold around 18th, 19th of February, but most of these ensemble members are keeping us on the milder side of average. And then we just stay generally mild, not as mild as it will be in the coming days, but staying generally mild through towards month end. As always, we do have those few cold outlier members, these ones down here Couple of them, only 2 of them out of like 20 ensemble members, 20 plus ensemble members if you include the operational. So got a couple that are going very cold towards the end of February. Again, they are outliers. They are not particularly well supported. The overall trend within the GFS ensemble looks mild, but not as mild as it will be in the coming days. I mean, this is the peak of the temperature in the next 2 weeks at the moment anyway, and it's happening around Thursday or Friday. Precipitation-wise, loads of dry weather coming up to the weekend. Next week looking a little bit more unsettled. We're talking about gently unsettled conditions returning next week. I think nothing too dramatic in terms of wind and rain at this stage. Temperature anomalies from the 11th through to the 19th of February, milder than average for the UK and Ireland, most parts of Europe, milder than average too. Precipitation anomalies, hardly a surprise given that ensemble chart for Darwin coming out drier than average. So a mild and dry week from the 11th to the 19th of February. This is how the GFS 6 o'clock run is looking for Thursday. So this is Valentine's Day, of course, bringing up balmy winds for Valentine's Day. Winds are going to be in from the south, so temperatures probably into the low to mid-teens Celsius. Got some eastern parts of the country given a little bit of sunshine. And that's Friday, keeping those very mild southerly winds going. Into the weekend, just start to turn a little bit more unsettled from the west with this area of low pressure. That will begin to bring cloud and rain into west. I think most central easterners are going to have a dry weekend as well. Just probably the breeze starts to pick up. The temperatures probably just begin to lower. You'll notice we're not bringing up that sort of long fetch southerly at the weekend that we are sort of early next week. So if we go back to Thursday, there's the southerly winds pumping up from a long way south on Thursday, and they're still with us into Friday. But by the time you get through to Sunday, not as much of a southerly flow. Probably a little bit more southeasterly, if anything, a little bit more off the continent with the air mass, and just picking up the breeze a little bit. So I suspect in the weekend, temperatures will cool down closer to average, probably still milder than average, but cooling down closer to average over the weekend. And then next week, again, we've got this area of low pressure developing out to west. We saw it on the height anomaly flow chart. Never really makes a great deal of inroads into the UK. It's starting to slip southwards as we get through to Tuesday next week, Tuesday 19th of February. Notice heights are rising a little bit up towards Greenland. The 500 millibar height anomalies from Penn State University did pick up on these height rises up to the north. Not enough to force down anything particularly cold in the 7 to 10 day time frame, but we probably need to keep a bit of an eye on it. That's how things are looking as we get to day 10, which is Thursday, the 21st of February. Again, we have got these height rises taking place to our north, to our northeast. There's a bit of high pressure over Scandinavia. There's a bit of high pressure over towards Greenland. It doesn't extend reach down into the UK. Still not really producing anything particularly cold, but it will certainly be cooler. We'll probably be seeing a return to night frost there, and not particularly unsettled either. GFS isn't turning things unsettled next week, unlike the ECM, which we will come on to in a moment. That is just a little bit beyond day 10. That's Friday the 22nd of February. We've actually turned the wind into the east, and that would be a pretty cold easterly wind. There's no real depth of cold sitting to our east, but at this time of year, any wind that's coming off the continent is going to be pretty cold. So that's a fairly chilly east wind, becoming colder next week with the GFS, and quite a bit of blocking as well, you have to say. Still isn't really doing anything to produce anything all that cold for us, but certainly that is quite a substantial area of high pressure. I think the central pressure of that is around 1,025 millibars, so there is some high pressure up to our north. It's certainly starting to push much colder air down into northern and northeastern parts of Europe. Again, it's not quite lining up correctly for us to get anything particularly cold. Those are the upper air temperatures with that chart, so actually they're relatively mild, but you'll see to our northeast it is much much colder, and obviously if that high pressure signal to the north was to strengthen any more than that, then it would start to pull in much colder air from the northeast. What actually happens with this GFS run is that the high pressure breaks down, so by month's end, this is Wednesday 27th of February, as far as we can go, 384 hours. By pretty much the end of February, the westerlies are coming back with those southwest winds and areas of low pressure are moving in from the Atlantic. The upper air temperature show that by this point, that very cold air, and it is really, really cold air by this point, is moving down from western Russia into eastern and southeastern parts of Europe. So that'd be another situation where kind of like Greece and Turkey gets a lot of snow, and we're mild, wet and windy, which I know drives a lot of the snow lovers in the UK absolutely crazy when that happens, but it does happen quite regularly, and it's nothing all that out of the ordinary. But before we get to that, we do give it a good go with this GFS run, getting some genuine norm blocking. Obviously we do need to keep a close eye on it, because if we go back to that point, it all starts at around 168 to 192 hours with this little bit of a ridge around Greenland, Iceland, which isn't all that far out. It's only like a week away, but we do start to see signs anyway of heights rising up to the north. So we need to keep an eye on it, but at the moment the GFS and its ensembles as well not really showing all that much in the way of cold weather. But obviously if those heights are rising to our north, we do need to keep a watch on it. This is a GEM, a Canadian model, so again we've got these very mild southerly winds coming up on Thursday, and they continue into Friday as well, into the weekend. That ridge just beginning to weaken, allowing some low pressure to start to head in from the west. So over the weekend it begins to turn cooler and a little bit more unsettled, particularly to the north and to the west. Into next week, quite unsettled, with low pressure continuing to head in from off the Atlantic. That's how we look at day 10. So really quite an unsettled chart by day 10, actually. But it is mild. Temperatures will be above average because we're still bringing up those southerly to southwest winds. GM always seems to show something a little bit different. I think this time possibly overdoing that low pressure a little bit. It's down to central pressure of around 960, maybe even 955 millibars across the northern Atlantic. So that's a really deep area of low pressure, probably a little bit over the top. This is the ECMWF. Again, we've got the winds up from the south on Thursday, so looking very mild through the second half of this week. Double-digit temperatures are going to occur, and possibly up to the mid-teens Celsius for some eastern parts of the country Thursday and Friday. Weekend, again, we're still on the 500 millibar high dynamic flow charts from Penn State University. By the time we get through to the weekend, the high pressure is just beginning to weaken a little bit. Low pressure is beginning to develop from the Atlantic, so turning a bit cooler, a bit more unsettled over weekend. Into next week, we go into a cooler and more unsettled weather pattern too. And that's how we look at day 10, which is Thursday, 21st of February. Again, you'll notice we've got these small sort of daily incremental height rises developing to our north. Nothing overly dramatic. This is not real northern blocking, but we have got some height rises occurring here towards Iceland and Greenland, which is just beginning to force everything that little bit further south, probably starting to trickle some colder air into the UK. Cold enough for frost, I mean. We're not talking about snow, but cold enough for frost in the second half of next week. And obviously, again, similar to the GFS really around this time frame, from kind of like days 7 to 10, just need to keep an eye on how much these height rises are, how much heights are rising to our north, let's say. Just need to keep an eye on it. We may probably not pull in anything particularly cold before the end of February, but we need to keep a close eye on what's going on there around day 10. These are the options that are on the table within the GFS ensembles as we're looking ahead to day 10, which is the 21st of February, 240 hours. So we've got 22 ensemble. This is from the Icelandic Met Office, by the way. We've got 22 ensemble members that have above average heights, kind of like to the south and southeast of the country, below average heights in the Atlantic. They're bringing up mild southerly to southwesterly winds, and they're pretty dry as well, high pressure close to us. We've got 15 ensemble members, which does include that operational GFS run that has low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic, so more unsettled solution in the day 10 time frame, bringing in kind of like a westerly flow. Doesn't really show much in the way of height rises, all that apparent to the north either. And then we've got 14 ensemble members that have an area of high pressure set up almost over top of the UK. So we've got a big ridge sitting over the UK. Those would be mainly dry and very pleasant, I would have thought, although maybe a little bit chilly with the wind possibly coming in from an easterly direction. But Overall, not much sign of northern blocking in the 10-day time frame with the ECM ensembles. How things looking in 2 weeks is situation on the 26th of February at 360 hours. So we've got 21 ensemble members with an area of above average heights, high pressure, almost over top of the UK and to our north as well. So they're very dry, probably very pleasant, early spring, late winter conditions. The main thing with those that it would be really dry. Then we've got 16 that have the above average heights further to our east with below average heights in the middle of the Atlantic, and we're bringing up quite a mild southwesterly wind with those ones. That includes the control member of the ECM ensembles as well. There's 8 ensemble members that have above average heights to our north. So these ones have a bit of a blocking signal. They're developing high pressure between Scandinavia and Greenland with below average heights to our south. So those ones could be a bit colder. And then we've got 6 ensemble members that again have quite a lot of high pressure, this time centred towards Greenland, but more out towards the Canadian side of Greenland. Above average heights also to our south. So they're a bit of a mess. They're trying to bring cold air down from the north with the blocking, but at the same time, mild air is trying to push up from the southwest. Probably would be some sort of weather front strung out, marking a divide between the colder and milder temperatures. So those could be bringing rain, possibly even snow. On that divide with those 6 ensemble, those 6 ensemble members. Finally, just have a look at CFSV2 for the next 4 weeks. So these are the 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 11th to the 17th of February. So the coming week has above average heights centred over and to the east of the UK, below average heights out to the west. We're bringing up mild or very mild southerly to southwesterly winds with those ones. A dry and mild week coming up. Through to week 2, this is the 18th to 24th of February, above average heights from Central Europe extending over towards Greenland with below average heights out to the west-southwest of us. So we're trying to retrogress a high pressure, but it's still generally quite mild. We're still bringing up winds from a kind of like southerly, possibly slightly southeasterly direction. So I would have thought a little bit colder, a little bit cooler than week 1, but still not particularly cold. And then we're through to week 3, which is the 25th of February to the 3rd of March. Above average heights then sitting over the UK and extending down to our south as well. So low pressures around here, and we're bringing the wind and the jet stream up like that. So that's mainly dry again for the end of February and the start of March, but that would be milder. Once again, a little bit of taste of spring possible with that. And then finally we go through to week 4, which is the 4th through to the 10th of March. A little bit of high pressure over Scandinavia, low pressure out to our northwest, high pressure back to the Azores, just bringing in a westerly flow there. That would be rather more unsettled, I think. But the air's still driving in off the Atlantic, so relatively mild with that one. So the general trend over the next week to 10 days is a lot of dry and quite mild, possibly even very mild conditions this week. And then next week, I think overall turning a little bit more unsettled. Though the GFS isn't all that keen on turning it unsettled next week, but it looks like it can turn a little bit more unsettled through next week. And we do have to keep an eye on those height rises up towards Greenland and Iceland in the second half of next week. They're fairly minor, fairly modest height rises at the moment, but if they was to develop any further in the model output, then that would be enough to start forcing down colder air from the north, probably as we go into the final week of February. Finally, just leave you with this. So the YouTube channel, I talked about this in yesterday's video, the YouTube channel is heading up towards 5,000 subscribers. It's gone up since I said about this yesterday. We're now up to 4,977 subscribers for the Gazov's YouTube channel. Big thank you to all of the subscribers for Gazov's YouTube channel, especially the subscribers that came on board yesterday. If you would like to subscribe to the Gazov's YouTube channel, then please do. Don't forget you can give the video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it as well. As I said, we're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. Hopefully we'll be able to do that this week. So like and subscribe to Gazzovi's YouTube channel if you would like to do that. Right, that's it for today's video. We'll be back tomorrow with another Week to 10 Day video update. And of course, we will have the ECMWF 30-day look ahead tomorrow as well. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.